The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View, sponsored by the Nashua City Republican Committee. And if you want, we meet at the Crown Plaza the second Thursday of every month. And if you want to find out more information, you can go to our website at nashuagop.org.
Welcome to The People's View.
Hello, and help me welcome Jim Lawrence here. Jim, you're running for Congress in the District 2.
Thanks for having me, Carl.
I'm glad you come in again and to talk about how your campaign's going. It must keep you busy.
Yeah, you know, it is keeping me very busy, but you know what? Things are going very well. I'm proud to say that the message that I've been spreading all throughout the 2nd Congressional District here in the state of New Hampshire has continued to be received very well.
Great. We need somebody in there that's going to do something for us because the one we have right now is not the one we really need. And with your experience, I think you're going to do a good job.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence, Carl, and I can tell you one thing. I definitely have the most experience of anyone running in this race now, having served 3 terms in the New Hampshire State House, also being an Air Force veteran and a proud graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, small businessman, and most importantly, proud family man and parent of 8 wonderful children.
Wow. Well, you've got some accomplishments right there. But I think the business aspect is going to be very important in the federal government. They don't treat enough of our projects or enough of the programs that we have in a business-like way. And I'm sure you have some ideas along that line.
Well, I absolutely do. And one of the things that's unique about my business experience in particular, it dealt with, of all things, the Department of Defense budgeting. So I'm the only candidate in this race that actually has actual DOD and federal government budget experience, which, as you know, with a $19.5 trillion national debt and counting, $60,000 for each and every American, that's exactly the kind of experience that we need to send down to Washington to try and deal with our fiscal spending issue down in Washington and reverse the tide of our national debt crisis.
What are you going to go to first if you get elected? You got a nice bucket of GOP to get into.
Well, you know, unfortunately, there are a lot of issues that need attention right now in Washington. I mean, we just talked about the national debt. Our economy is very sluggish. We've had the slowest economic recovery in the history of this country. In the last 8 years, our highest GDP growth rate year was 3%. That is literally the worst in the history. The worst 8-year period of growth, the worst in history of the United States. And unfortunately, a lot of that is due to the overregulation and overtaxation by our government, crippling small businesses and preventing what we know as the economic engine of this great nation, preventing those small businesses from growing our economy.
Well, that's something we're facing here in the state, on a state basis also. So how do you think what would you attack first, I guess, is
well, you know, one good area to attack is, I mean, it's kind of ironic that you brought this up, because one of the things I notice, whether I'm in the North Country, whether I'm in the Connecticut River Valley, when I'm talking to business executives, business owners, small business owners, the number one thing that they talk to me about that keeps them up at night is the overregulation of their businesses. They say that's the number one reason that's preventing them from being able to expand, preventing them from being able to grow their businesses and expand our economy. So I want to target that overregulation right away. I had the wonderful benefit of sitting down with the management of Whalen Engineering. It's a fine manufacturing firm in Charlestown, New Hampshire. And they have been able to succeed where so many other American firms have failed to maintain a large-scale, successful manufacturing operation here in the United States. And they spent a lot of time talking to me about the overregulation of their business and the things that the government has done to get in the way of them being able to to grow their business. So we need to start focusing on that. I mean, we need to start holding agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency accountable. I mean, a lot of their regulations and their regulatory authority that they're moving forward with is outdated. We need to make sure that, you know, they have the tools they need to protect our environment, but they also should be protecting our economy and not stripping our businesses of their ability to compete.
So looking at these regulations and finding out that some of them are actually inhibiting, making people take long times filling out paperwork and all that sort of stuff that really might not be necessary. You really strip it down to, okay, guys, what do you really need to make sure that we're not screwing up here?
Absolutely, absolutely. And even more so, we want to make sure that the regulations are really doing what it's intended to do.
That's right.
If it's going to protect the environment, we need to make sure it's not some outdated regulation that doesn't have a good use right now.
Maybe there's what do you call it, an ending time that all these
Sunset
regulations.
clause.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be kind of difficult to do that for some of the environmental stuff because you can't really accurately project when something is going to be no longer an issue. But you know, if I look, some of the rules and regulatory things that they're following now date back to the 70s. That's definitely
much,
worth
yeah.
updating at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, that's one, just having it in there X number of years, and it has to be refreshed or whatever you want. What other things are the companies like this one in Charleston looking for?
Well, they're also looking for some relief in terms of how our tax code deals with business. We hear a lot of discussion about businesses that are actually leaving the United States. One of the things that I don't hear enough talk about is the fact that the United States currently has the highest corporate tax rate of any westernized country in the world. I mean, a lot of these businesses are leaving the United States because they can go to places like Ireland or the UK or other countries in Europe and elsewhere around the world and get a much better tax rate than the United States. You know, our government should take responsibility, should shoulder some of the blame for these companies leaving and actually do something about it and restructure our tax code, bring it into the 21st century so we can compete in the world economy. You know, the funny thing about that is that if we realistically competed by bringing let's say we brought the average marginal tax rate for corporations in the United States down to what the average is around the world, which is about 20%. You would actually collect more tax revenue from those businesses because they will no longer be going overseas. And if you actually took another step and actually decreased that tax rate maybe another 5% for an interim to entice companies that have left the United States to come back, you'd collect even more. You know, it's a win-win situation. We'd collect more tax revenue for the United States government, and you would keep more jobs in America, you'd keep more companies in America, and you'd help our economy grow.
We saw that, didn't we, here in the state, when we just a fraction of a percent reduced it, and we got more income coming in. We had a surplus that we didn't really expect to be as large as it was. And that's just an example of what you're saying.
Absolutely.
People have to feel it's not just the tax that you're getting from the company, but if you have a lot more employees here, you have more jobs, more taxes coming from them, spending their money, less welfare, maybe, even.
You know, a good, strong economy benefits us greatly in a lot of ways. We started this conversation off talking about our national debt. The last time that the United States actually had a budget surplus at the federal level was in the 90s. And a big portion of why that was possible in the 90s is because our economy was growing at a much more rapid rate than it's currently growing now. So anything we can do to get our economy going, it's going to help us with our deficit spending. It's going to help us draw down our national debt. It's going to put more Americans to work. It's going to stimulate our economy. It's going to help us keep our companies back in the United States. These are all the things that we should be focusing on.
More investments and everything were there. And I remember we were actually paying down the debt for a while, for a couple of years there. That was something that was unheard of. Think we can get there again?
You know what? If we start to roll back the overregulation of the federal government on businesses, we allow businesses to grow, we allow our small businesses particularly to invest and to help expand our economy, absolutely, it's very possible. But we have to get the government out of the way of industry so that our economy can get going again.
How do we get most people to understand something like this? Because, I don't know, it seems to be all people think of is, oh, it's the billionaires that are going to get more money in their pocket. But it's not, because billionaires became billionaires because they invested the money. And so any of the profits usually goes back to see if we can grow whatever it's being invested in.
Well, you raise a good point. I mean, I heard again in the debates last night an argument that we need to increase taxes
Right.
on corporations and businesses. Nothing would be more damaging to our economy than doing that. It's absolutely the wrong policy. It's the wrong direction for America. It's not in anyone's best interest here to do that. We need to have serious policies down in Washington, D.C., and we need more leadership down in Washington who understands these issues so that we don't continue to make the wrong decisions and lead America down the wrong path.
It seems like that's what's happening down there, that people just have this concept that is really not realistic to the way any kind of financial organization would be run. Well, maybe we train our kids to go down there, become financial wizards or something.
Well, I know that 2 of my children currently are in college here in the state of New Hampshire. And, I think that education is a very important piece to that, to make sure that
Definitely.
people have a good understanding of some of these things. But it raises another point that we need to address, another issue, is this escalating cost of tuition. The fact that college tuitions are growing, the cost of college tuition is growing at one of the most rapid rates of any commodity currently. Not to mention the fact that, the federal government, in my estimation, has done some damage to our students to be able to get the student loan program that the federal government is currently administrating. It's broken right now. So there's a lot of work to be done down in Washington.
Well, whatever the government touches seems to break down quite easily, doesn't it?
Well, let's not hope that's true for defense, because we need them to
Well,
keep
that's
us
true,
safe.
but it's you're getting to worry people now about how old our ships are, how old our planes are, and all that sort of stuff. And it's very costly to operate, to build those things. So I don't know if that's something you got an idea on how to control that too, control that inflation that comes with some of the technology we have.
Well, talking about military readiness, being a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and Air Force veteran is something that's near and dear to my heart. There's a lot of tension in the world right now. We've been suffering under some of the worst foreign policy in decades. Our allies don't feel like they can depend on us. Our enemies certainly don't fear us. And unfortunately, while all this is going on, our military readiness is suffering as well. We can't afford to have a military that's not ready to fight on day one. So once again, I said there's a lot of work to do in D.C. I'm very anxious. I hope the voters will bless me with the ability to be elected this November so I can go down to Washington and get to work for the people of New Hampshire.
You're ready to go.
No, I'm definitely ready to go.
Okay, well, maybe we ought to just help you on your way. We'll get this little interview spread around so people can get to know you better and understand why you're the person for District 2 here in New Hampshire. You have anything else to add to this little interview?
Well, absolutely. I'm running for Congress in the 2nd Congressional District. I'm asking for the people's vote this November the 8th. I ask for the people of New Hampshire to stand with me so that I can stand up for them in Washington and support them.
Very good. I think you make a good representative.
Well, thank you, Carl.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.